Hello, my name is Hazel and I am Associate Assistant Head Teacher at Putteridge High School in Luton, which is part of the Chiltern Learning Trust. I've been teaching for 20 years in 3 different schools, and I have been head of department for over 9 years. The schools I've worked in have been quite different. One of them had a department of 15, including 6 foreign language assistants, which is totally unheard of now. And I currently work in a department of 3, and I teach German and French. What I'd like to share with you in this session is how to make languages accessible for all. And we will be looking at examples both from inside the classroom and outside the classroom. It's very important, whether you're in a large department or a small department, to stay connected, to stay outward looking, to stay in touch with the people around you, with other local schools, with the national picture, national discussion, so you've got an idea of what is going on and you don't stay within a bubble. One thing that I use a lot to help me stay in touch is Facebook. I use a lot of Facebook groups, especially secondary MFL matters, teaching German, MFL knowledge organisers and MFL middle leadership matters. On there's lots of discussion about the current issues, and there's also an opportunity to share resources, and all these resources are free, and it's all current thinking. People create stuff and then they put it on there to share. As I said, it was all free. I use TES resources as well. However, that sometimes can be a bit expensive, but depending on what the product is, it can be worth it if you're looking for a quick find. Something else that I use is katelanguages.com. This is brilliant for Key Stage 4. There's lots of writing, translation, reading materials that you can easily use and adapt for all abilities. They all come with answers, so it's brilliant for cover work as well, or for setting remotely. But there's really clear progression through the tasks, and they're all based on exam style questions as well, which is really useful. Another website I use is teachitlanguages.com. Here they organise their work by topics into different key stages, and then you can use a PDF with each item, and that is free to use. If you wish to use the adaptable versions, then there is an annual charge for that, but it is not expensive. Again, this is useful for inspiration when you're looking for a way of starting the topic differently. You don't just want to use what's in the textbook. And it's really also very good for stretching your more able students, or for providing resources or a different task for students who need a bit more support or a slightly different type of activity. What I also use is bringing real-world examples into the classroom. This is really important. It's no good just teaching about the rooms in a house. It's a bit boring to just learn what the rooms for the bedroom, lounge, garden are. So what I often use with my classes is a Rightmove equivalent called immowelt.de. And students can choose their own buildings, their own houses, their own flats, which part of Germany they would like to live in. And they have, then of course there are activities they have to do to describe these houses, but just being able to look at what's available, what's on the market, what German houses look like, what modern German houses look like, and what old traditional ones look like too. And they're so very different to the houses that we have in this country, and it's a really useful tool for students to gain an insight into what life is like there. When you're talking about the topic of food, cake is really important. I used to live in Vienna, and I used to frequent the cake shops quite frequently, and nowhere in the world does cake like Vienna does cake. So when you're teaching about food and different fruit flavours, for example, one way of bringing the real world in is to take students to the website of a cafe. I use the Cafe Oberla in Vienna, and this picture is from one of the cafes, and the students just love to see what is available there. You just have to make sure it's not a session just before lunch, because then they get really, really hungry. What I also like to do is to share pictures of the real world. I might have an image on the board as they're coming in. is to inspire them, is to show them what Austria in this instance really looks like. Again, I get these pictures from a Facebook group called die Schönsten Orte Österreich Gruppe, and they regularly have people taking beautiful pictures and updating them, uploading them there. One brilliant moment this year in November, early November, the first snow had started to fall in Austria, and I put those pictures up on the board, and it blew my students' minds. They really, really loved seeing so much snow and just how beautiful it is there. From a French-speaking point of view, our textbooks are pretty good now at sharing more information about countries from the French-speaking world. But nothing really can compare with actually seeing it. Okay, you can't take them there, well, not to Guadeloupe anyway, but you can take them there through a website. I mean, just look how beautiful that is. For students to know that people there speak French would blow their mind, would open their minds and think of all the possibilities of travel, and it's just stunning. So it really is worth taking the time and the opportunity in lessons to share the real world with them. That is how you can hook them in, get them interested. Don't just teach them words and phrases. It's got to relate to the real world. Another way I do this is using a news channel called ZDF Heute. They upload 30-second news clips to Facebook, and they always have subtitles. And the German is challenging, but it's not too difficult. The topics are real, they're current, it interests the teenagers, especially about the environment. There's lots and lots of videos about that. But it really helps to expand their vocabulary knowledge. One thing I do is I put some English words up on the board, and they've simply got to find the German ones. This is a brilliant way of practicing reading and listening skills. It's a different way of doing listening, but it's listening for the real world. It's not putting a tape on and playing it twice and then asking them 5 comprehension questions. They're actually listening to see whether they understand what is being said to real people who are also listening to this. So it's really, really valuable for them to know that this is happening in the real world, that real people speaking German, understanding German, use this too. Another way of hooking students in is by the lessons that you create. Now, we can't create amazing lessons like this for every lesson we do, because it does take a couple of hours to prepare a lesson like this. But I asked one of my Year 8 students what they enjoyed most about a lesson that they'd had this year, and she said it was the Marvel lesson. And I shared this with them at the start of the year. We were practicing pronunciation, and they hadn't done much German before. So I showed them the trailer to Winter Soldier. I put some phrases up on the board in German that were directly from the trailer. Then they had to imitate those phrases in the accent that they heard on the trailer, and practice, and then record their own voiceover in German for the trailer. So it was a brilliant way to teach them phonics, to teach them how to pronounce words, how to bring intonation into their voice as well, to make it sound like they were telling a story and to get dramatic with it. But it did create a highly engaging lesson. It was challenging for them and it was relevant for them too. I also like Marvel, so it's important to share your passions, but it really did speak to some of them. Another way of making sure that your students engage is to make them feel proud of themselves. I think this is one of the most important things. Students need to feel valued inside your classroom. They need to feel valued by you. They need to know that you are interested in them, you're interested in their progress, you celebrate with them, you help them pick themselves up and build them up if they get something a bit wrong. But you also want to create an atmosphere where there is no fear in getting something wrong either. You want them to love your subject, you want them to love learning the language, you want them to feel safe within your classroom, and they will get that from their relationship with you. So it is worth spending time and attention during the lessons, going and speaking to all of them, making sure they have everything they need in order to achieve the tasks, to complete them. Maybe they need some extra resources to stretch them further. I often use the back of old GCSE textbooks where there are grammar tasks if a student needs to go deeper into their understanding of the present tense, for example. Or equally, if a student needs more resources to help them, then you will only find that out by going and speaking to them and finding out. And maybe they need a knowledge organiser in front of them, or a word mat, or a dictionary. But the time you spend in them is really, really valuable. Also, the time you spend marking their books and the type of feedback you give them is also important. The EEF toolkit puts feedback at the top of their most effective tools for impact on a student. One way I mark their books is by highlighting their work in green and for what is perfect, and then in pink for the little bits that need correcting. They really like this, firstly because they can see how much they've got right and then feel good about themselves. And then secondly, they actually act on all the pink bits. Can you imagine if I just marked the pink bits in red? They would easily gloss over them, they would miss bits, but somehow the pink highlighter stands out and they want to work on it to make it better. So there'll always be time in the lesson afterwards to give them to fix their work, to work with each other, to find out what it is they need to do to improve their work. So the time you give them on paper and in person is really, really, really important. It's really also very exciting to take students abroad. I know in this day and age it is increasingly harder to do so. A lot of students can't afford it. A lot of students have fear about it. Parents have fear about it too. But those that go come back with a confidence that they didn't have before they went. I'm really talking exchanges here. I have taken some trips to Vienna where students have experienced the culture. I've taken large groups to Cologne in year 7 and 8 so they can experience German culture for themselves. But it's exchange programmes that really have the greatest impact. We've been very fortunate to have a partnership with a French school and a German school for the last 7 years. And it all started with a Comenius project, which lasted 2 years. And we got given €25,000 from the European Union. With that money, we took our students to both partner schools and then we hosted them as well. We had 2 projects that we worked on. One was to create a trilingual magazine, and the other was to put on a trilingual stage production, which took place in Germany in June 2015. The theme for this project was immigration and dispelling the idea of them and us, and looking at the idea of equality. And it was something that the teenagers, the students really took to. It was relevant and they felt quite impassioned about it. From this Comenius project, we're very fortunate to keep our partnership with the German school in particular very strong. And every year we have either visited them or they have visited us. In 2016, we got funding from the UK-German connection. It was just for £1,000, but it made such a difference. That was when the German school visited us and we were able to pay for an activity day. We went to an outdoor pursuit centre to do team building in mixed groups. But we were able to pay for that for both the German students and the English students. And then more recently, in 2019, we were given £8,000 from the British Council School Exchange Programme. This was quite hard to manage in time because we heard about the successful funding bid in the October and we flew in the December. So there was an awful lot to turn around quickly. It was a very enjoyable experience, and because we had this money, we were able to be flexible. We took students who could stay in families, and we had 10 that stayed in families, and then we had 8 who stayed in a hotel with me and another member of staff. Not all those students were able to stay in families. We took students with SEND and some pupil premium students too. And then also we had a real gender imbalance. We had more boys wanting to take part, and the German school had more girls wanting to take part, and we couldn't have mixed homestays. So the funding from the British Council enabled a group of 8 plus 2 staff to stay in the hotel, as well as students staying in homes. But we all took part in the same programmes. Their friends became everyone's friends. What was really good in all of these exchanges that we've done is the increasing presence of social media and how students get to know each other before they travel. But not only do they get to know each other, they get to know their friendship groups too, and they get to form relationships and friendships before they get there. So when they arrive, it's like they've known them already. That's not how I remember a school exchange, but that's how it is today. So there is a lot less fear in it. And because we went before Christmas, it was a very magical time. It's great to be in Germany when the Christmas markets are open, but it also snowed, which was amazing. So I don't need to mention really how much cultural capital you get from taking students abroad. The food that they can try, the feasts for their eyes, going to the Christmas markets and seeing how beautiful they are, all the different stalls, and the houses, the half-timbered houses, just seeing how German culture is, and how different things are, but yet how things are just the same too. Because they realise that teenagers are just teenagers. They have the same issues, they're into the same things, they have the same passions, but they just happen to speak a different language and live in different countries. I'm speaking from my own point of view there as well. There is my exchange partner, if you like, who I've been friends with since 2013. But every time we take students there or they come to stay with us, more and more friendships are built. And what's also happened that has never happened to me before is that students are going back with their parents to visit after the exchange. And it's just such a valuable stepping stone, if you like, to lifelong friendships. There's also those memorable moments. You're taking a student away for the first time who's never been in a plane before. It snowed, like I said. And then experiencing the culinary delights of a Christmas market. You can't beat taking students away. There are barriers. It is hard work, a lot of hard work. When you do exchanges and you have people staying here, you do have to you're advised to get anyone over the age of 18 to have a DBS check. We paid for that, and it was only £9. 63, I think, per person, because they're considered as volunteers. It might seem like a logistical nightmare, but it wasn't. We gave ourselves a whole term to get ready, so from the October half term to the February half term, and we managed to meet our deadline and get all those checks back. Getting funding from the British Council meant that our pupil premium students could go. It meant that if anyone didn't have a passport, we could pay for that for them. And it meant we could stay in the hotel. So it really is worth applying for this, for funding from various places that you can apply it from, because it really opens doors and it gives students real opportunities that they might not get. There were 2 real lasting impacts, as well as the friendships. We were really fortunate to be awarded the International School Award twice, largely based on the work that we had done with our German school, and I had the privilege of going to Westminster to receive our certificate. But the other impact was our results improving. For a number of years I didn't have that many high grades, and then it jumped to 40%, getting 9 to 7 2 years ago, and we've managed to sustain that as well. And I am very sure it is to do with the interaction that our students have and the friendships that they have with other teenagers in Germany. We even had one non-native speaker who started learning German in year 7. She got full marks for her speaking exam, full marks, and she's not a native speaker. I didn't think that was possible unless you were a native speaker, but she had learnt German from year 7. She'd built brilliant friendships. She'd had about 4 interactions, either going to Germany or receiving people to stay, and she got full marks for her speaking exam. I was incredibly proud of her. But I'm incredibly proud of all the students who have done their very, very best and have got really, really good grades. And I have a number that have gone on to do A-level now, which is fantastic. So here's a list of the organisations that I personally have used. There are far more out there. Communities is now otherwise known as Erasmus+. British Council have lots of programmes. It really is worth looking at their website. The UK German Connection is also a good source of funding. The Association for Language Learning and Roots into Languages both act as signposts. They will tell you where funding is available. They will give you lesson ideas. They will give you guidance on national discussions. They will give you the opportunity to take students to Cambridge University. We've done that about 4 times. And they have loved the experience of learning another language in a university setting. The British German Association and YouthBridge, which is part of that, also has lots of competitions. Goethe Institute as well. But really, I would recommend going onto Facebook groups to keep in touch with what is going on, to get the newest ideas from other people, and to share resources. To quote Dame Professor Alison Peacock of the Chartered College of Teaching, she said, people become part of a community when they're connected, and teachers are the connectors. Making languages accessible for all students takes a lot of effort. It takes that extra effort to put into your lessons, to take them abroad, to find ways of engaging them. But it really, really is worth doing, and it makes it accessible for all of them. Thank you for listening.